Miscellaneous minds, never explaining the minds. Devilish grin for my alias, aliens who respond. Peddling sin, thinking maybe when you get old you realize I'm not gonna fold or demise. I don't smoke crack, motherfucker, I sell it.
What is going on, everybody? This is the Miscellaneous Minds podcast. I'm your co-host, Puma El Gato, the cat that gives you your freedom back. And to my right over here is the main man, Jesus De Niro, the man that makes the fat stacks. Together we form the dynamic duo that won't die. Deadly ideas, bros, and spicier content than your girls' only fans.
What's up, everybody? Wanted to tell you all before we get into this video, please like, comment, subscribe, hate, DM, all that good stuff. We're going to be talking about a little bit of a different topic today. It involves an individual that's very prolific, obviously, in the news, on social media, so on and so forth. And while we are discussing him, I really want to get more into the specific circumstances surrounding his arrest. So a lot of you know Andrew Tate, very controversial figure, an individual that some people absolutely adore, some people absolutely hate. We're more in the middle. We have made previous videos where we say, hey, don't idolize the man, don't let him control the narrative, so on and so forth. But I'll be honest with you, certain conditions are swaying my personal opinion on this. I'm not going to speak for my man, but there's a lot of circumstances that have arisen very recently. And again, those are the circumstances that we're going to be talking about, and why, in my opinion, again, given the circumstances and given the climate, given certain political groups that are pushing, it's starting to push me out of the comfort of what would be the left, the comfort of what would normally or used to be my political home. But let's just get into it. So the reason that I'm starting to take a little bit of a turn, again, we've previously both spoken out against Andrew Tate, but the reason that I'm personally starting to take a little bit of a my man might not be wrong type of thing is because of the circumstances surrounding his arrest. Now, look, if the man is found to have committed the things that he did, rape, trafficking of women, gonna keep it YouTube friendly, not say the words, all that kind of stuff, hey, the man deserves to definitely be in jail. With that being said, though, I have no problem with that concept. I've done criminal law myself, so I understand the concept, and I'm all here for it. Where I have a problem is in a number of things that are going on that should scare everybody, should scare you, even if you hate Andrew Tate. It should scare you because of what's being played, and it's really the role of the government. So let me explain. The first one is his detention. Now, by the laws in Romania, they can hold you up to a certain amount of time, and he's still well within that time frame. Now, I have no problem with that. What I do have a problem with is there's no charges. Now, some people will say, oh, they're digging into the case, so on and so forth, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with building a case. But to hold a man while you're building that case, I mean, think about it. Let's say you did nothing wrong, but the cops say, I think you did something wrong. The government says, I think you did something wrong, so I'm going to hold you in prison, in jail, until we can find what you did wrong. That's a scary thought. That's a scary thought because that's basically the government taking it upon themselves to hold you until they either absolutely find something or until they deem, okay, well, we've done enough. We haven't found anything, and now you can get out. And again, that time frame is the scary part. I mean, in Romania, I believe it could be up to 6 months that they can hold you. It's a certain amount of days. It might not be exactly 6 months, but it's definitely close to 6 months, where they can hold you basically until, again, either they find something or they don't. And that's a scary thought. Being held without any evidence, being held without any charges, that's a scary thing. What do you think about that, my man?
There was something interesting that I saw being put out, especially since BBC and to some extent Vice also did documentaries on Andrew Tate detailing from the victim's point of view and their experience as to what they came to be or how they came to be in Tate's residence and what their claims of illegal transport, let's call it, into their estate. Now, in this BBC documentary, they described this person's nickname as Sophie for anonymity's sake. Sophie described from her own account that she, for the most part, had free will. So what had happened was that Tate and her exchanged messages over, I believe it was Facebook, and he had charmed her, basically done a little back and forth to make her think that he only had eyes for her, which convinced her to go to Romania, to where Tate's residence was. And now, for a time, Tate had been dating her for some time to try and, from her point of view, get her into a false sense of security, because from her own standpoint, you do a lot of things out of love. And by extension, that led into what he described as the webcam biz for which he has made his money. The problem that I have with that is that even in the own documentary itself, and the BBC did have a bit of a bias towards Tate. Again, given the general view of the man, I don't see why they wouldn't. But she described as being within the Tate's residence is that she actually was there of her own free will, and that she actually was able to conduct actions in that. Not only that, but she actually had full contact with people outside of the residence, meaning that she still had her phone. So if anything happened, she could call the police, she could call the embassy, she could call whoever, she could contact anybody. Which, if your claims of illegal transport are there, why would your supposed hostage taker, why would they give you a means to contact outside of your residence that you were illegally transported to? It doesn't really make sense for the claim that they were illegally transporting you if that happened to be the case. I know there was something you wanted to bring up as far as evidence that just came out via the defense attorneys of Tate's lawyer.
Yeah, so, that's a good way to lead into the second point, apart from the detention, so to speak. So it's one of these scenarios where these people that were claiming... So the government said there's 4 total victims. 2 of them have came out and are literally on social media constantly, and they've gone on with news, so on and so forth, saying, hey, look, we're not victims. Stop calling us victims. We're not. We were never trafficked. We were never anything. Stop calling us that. So right from that, from the 4 that supposedly came out and said, hey, we're victims, 2 of them off the bat, you got to take off. They've officially asked what is DICOT, basically their form of FBI, whatever you want to call it over there, to say, hey, to take them off and say, stop registering us as victims. So that's 2. Now, the other 2, very recently it came out, a text exchange between the 2 where, in plain language, in plain text, it's showing that they were conspiring. They outright said, we are going to lie. They said, we're going to extort this man for money. They said, this is what we need to do to lie. They say, you need to have an Oscar performance. One of the girl's mothers actually called the U.S. Embassy because she really did think that her daughter was being held. And in the text messages, her daughter says, Mom, I'm not being held against my will. I am not, you shouldn't have called the embassy. You're ruining my life, blah, 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 blah. In fact, right after that post, supposedly they said, hey, we're victims, we've been trafficked, and then they left the residence. This girl, and you can see it via her Instagram, like literally days after, was partying in France, partying in I believe it was Germany, partying in a couple different parts of the country, showing off, living her best life. A couple of Snapchats came out, sorry, not Snapchats, TikTok came out, where while she was in Tate's residence, and this is information that's confirmed by a number of sources that it was in Tate's house. She's doing all these TikTok videos, dancing with like a bunch of other girls, having all this fun, blah, blah, blah. So my thing is, and keep in mind, it's not like this was on Tate's, webcam or Tate's, channel. No, it was on her own Instagram, her own TikTok, her own Snapchat, and she's just having a blast. She's having a fun. She's, making jokes with all her friends. So I have a big problem with that aspect where all of this evidence has come out, and apparently the Romanian, again, DICOT, their FBI, whatever, is fighting to keep that evidence out. That's another reason why you should be scared, even if you hate the man. Imagine you're accused of a crime, whatever it may be. Let's say you're accused of grand theft. You've stolen something. And there's proof. There's video to show you didn't do it. But the prosecutor says, I don't care. I don't want that video to come in as evidence. It doesn't count. That's a scary thought because the government is taking it upon themselves to remove anything that would prove your innocence. And again, doesn't matter if you hate him. Doesn't matter if you think he's the best man in the world. The thought that the government can just say, I don't care if there's proof, to show that you're innocent. I don't want it to come in. That's a scary thought. I'll be honest with you. I both in dealing with cases in criminal and family law, there's been a number of scenarios that I've seen where women have outright lied. And we have the good thing is for a lot of those, we had, proof to show that the accusations that were being made were false. And it's a scary thing because think about this. Put yourself in this scenario. Imagine you're accused of something heinous like trafficking or like I saw with family law, you're accused of touching your children inappropriately. And you basically have to sit there with the accusation on the world, with this person saying that you did this thing. And you have to sit there until, in the cases that I was with, Child Protective Services investigating, the police investigating. And I'll be honest with you, normally these take 4, 5, 6, 7 months. In the meantime, everyone's looking at you like you did something inappropriate to children. And then going all that time, and then at the end, it turns out, okay, well, you didn't do anything. And we had to think. Now, don't get me wrong. I was very grateful that, organizations like CPS and the police department, I'm very grateful that they did the investigation. But for a certain period of time, these men were sitting there with this accusation that they did this thing. It's heinous because even if it's not true, your reputation has already been tarnished, because in the minds of some people, it will always stick out. So same concept with this man. Doesn't matter. Let's say it comes out that Tate didn't do any of those things. There's proof, blah, blah, blah. Let's say he's exonerated. In the mind of a lot of people, he's going to be guilty. They're just going to say, oh, well, we just didn't find the proof this time. So these investigations where the proof is being kept from coming into court, it's a scary thing that the government can take that upon themselves and just say, nope, we don't want that evidence to come in, even though it's proving your innocence. What are your thoughts on that particular aspect, my man?
It reminds me of a similar case in what happened of another infamous individual. And keep in mind, I only cite this person up because as reprehensible as this person is, I do agree to some extent doing these actions to this man, even though you could justify it to an extent, but having these actions done in practice at all it is kind of dipping your toes into authoritarianism. A while back when Alex Jones, and yes, I am bringing up Alex Jones, when Alex Jones was saying all the conspiracy theories about the Sandy Hook being a red flag and all that, and it did cause a lot of damage. He also caused a lot of conspiracies about the COVID vaccines, the mRNA, all that stuff. And as a result, all of his podcasts are booted off of Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all these social medias, and they basically went silent on this man. Now, granted, it's a different case because it's not governments per se, but it is giant corporations deciding what is acceptable language and what is not acceptable language. When they start dipping in their toes into what is acceptable and what is not, they can have that be as broad as they want and decide what is acceptable and what is not. Take what is happening even in the train derailment that's going on in Ohio right now. There are no media that are talking about what is happening with the train derailment at all, about the hazardous materials that's going on in the water. And the only people that are reporting it is people that is on TikTok and Twitter. And even then, those videos are getting taken down. So the justification of, oh, it's not acceptable content, well, that could mean anything. And that's the scary part, is when you have something that broad, you can mold it to be whatever you want. Granted, yes, in Alex Jones's case, he was doing reprehensible stuff, but with that general language and that practice, you can mold it to mean anything, even if it's something that, by a big corporation's decision, what is acceptable might not be acceptable to us. Some of us might want to know about some of those things, but because of their molding of that, they could take down content as they please.
Yeah, see, and that's really the crux of our argument here. Is, again, I'm not gonna stand up for Alex Jones. I think Alex Jones is a piece of shit. But with that being said, the concept still applies. You shouldn't be, even if what you're saying is controversial, as long as you're not saying, hey, I want my audience to go hurt people. You don't like the message, that's fine. Look, I'll be honest with you. I have nothing of a defense for Nazis. I have nothing of a defense for white supremacists. Nothing. But hey, I do believe in your right to say the stupid shit that you want to say. I don't agree with it. As a minority, I'm going to fight against it, but I believe in your right to fucking say it. So listen, again, you can hate Andrew Tate all you want. I don't care about that. That's fine. You can dislike the man. You can love the man. I don't care. And this is what I'm talking about with these movements too, that create this narrative where I have to, unfortunately, join the other side. Listen, just go back 2 videos ago. We said, don't let this man control the narrative. Don't let Andrew Tate control the narrative. So we're clearly against, what he was saying. But you're pushing me into his camp because of all these groups. And then I'll be honest with you, it's leftist groups. As a leftist, it sucks to say this, but it's leftist groups that push just because they don't like what this man is saying. They'll say he's misogynistic, blah, 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 blah. Which, again, fine, make the argument. But to then have these groups authoritatively, basically put this man in prison because they don't like what his message. That's where I have a problem with it. And then again, I'm not gonna say that I know every fact of the case, because the only people that really know the facts of the case are his attorney, which just come out with some recently interesting information, and the people investigating. So if it's found that he's guilty, okay, put the man away. I won't argue with it. I'll be like, hey, put him away. But what I have a problem with is not having the rights to do these things. And again, I understand Romanian law is a little bit different than American law. I get that. But it just, I don't know, man. It just does not sit right with me to think that this man could be sitting in prison and they may not actually push forward with the charges because, again, there was 4 victims. 2 of them are literally on social media as we speak saying, we're not victims. And the other 2's messages just leaks where they're conspiring and saying, we're going to lie and do these things. So it's a scary fucking thing when just the mere insinuation that an individual is a victim, and let's be honest here, specifically women, and then a man's life is basically ruined, tarnished, and he's losing out on so much just because of an accusation. Not even because of found evidence, but because of an accusation. Look, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole. It's a whole bunch of other stuff, but regardless of it, that's the crux of this particular argument. We don't want it to be a scenario where you don't have the rights that should be afforded to you, that should be afforded to anybody, whether I agree with them or not. Again, I'm not going to stand up for Alex Jones. I'm not going to stand up for white supremacists. I'm not going to stand up for Nazis. But unfortunately, if I want to be a principled person, they have the right to speak their shit, even if I wholeheartedly disagree with it. Anything else you want to add to that, my man?
I think that's good for me.
All right, with that being said, like I said at the beginning, like, comment, subscribe, hate, all that good stuff. Keep DMing me. I know that a couple of you have messaged me about coming on the podcast. I talked to my man right here about it. We'll be doing a couple different things with that. And again, with that being said,
until next time, get rest and stay blessed. We'll see you on the next one.